All right, I thought I'd start this cast out with a song that came to my head, and like, how could we hilariously start this episode? Because there's no good song I could cover, nothing very, some good piano beats, but you had a bad day, you let 'em all down, you sing a sad song just to turn it around. I couldn't think of anything else because I think this episode, the title was revealed as The Bells,
The bells,
which is
right?
kind of lame. I think
Very lame.
because even the episode title sometimes spoil what happens in the episode, such as A Night of the Seven Kingdoms with Brienne. So it kind of would have been funny if this was called like Fire and Blood, and we're like, I wonder what the episode title. Oh, that makes sense.
Right. Would have made a lot more sense. Yeah, it was kind of boring, and I don't know.
The
Not
bells.
that they make a big deal out of them by not giving them away earlier. So
Yeah, it's not called,
it was
like,
just the bells.
It's for something this big that happened this episode. Spoiler alert, by the way. I thought it'd be funny if we called like Hell's Bells. Or it's not like a title like Reigns of Castamere. It's just Reigns of Castamere, where like the Red Wedding happened. It's just the bells. But sweet, I have one question for you.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
Not great.
Oh, not great. What happened?
No. Well, just because of the show.
Oh, that's good.
Otherwise,
It could be
I'm great.
worse.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm absolutely fine and happy to be out of school and.
Thank goodness.
you
I
know,
agree.
everything. But I was just sort of spent after that show last night.
It definitely was draining, and not like in a Red Wedding way, because like we can get into that details of like I was spoiled for Red Wedding because like I watched a show like we said we watched a show like in the last year, correct? Like both of
Right.
us have watched like all 7 seasons basically.
Yes.
Because like the Red Wedding takes a lot out of you, and just was like, okay, here we go. Oh, it keeps going worse. Just kind of like this episode. But this episode, it had that classic, I'm gonna call like season 7, season 8. Like plot thing of like, why are the Dothraki running out like that? Why would this person do this? And I think this episode might be like the worst example of like a plot thing, not even like a staging thing where it's like, why is Jon taking his sweet time running towards the Night King? This is like, why is this person doing this at all? But just generally, I really like the episode, mostly just because I'm just gonna assume it's gonna be so divisive. Because like the long night for me was really bad because I had so much great hype about it. I'm like, okay, the good guys are most likely gonna win, or I didn't know. But this episode, I just liked it because it's like the one time in a TV show, much like the Red Wedding, where something happened I didn't fully expect, but just such a great turn, or not great, but just such a large turn in a character in such a short time, and just like. They probably could have used a few more episodes to drag this out, but it happened. It's semi-realistic if someone has this much power, because I kind of compared this from my friend Will. Like, if Superman gets mad at Lois Lane and he's backhands her with like a slap, like her neck's probably gonna break.
Right.
As opposed if I do that to a woman, which I hopefully I never do. I'm just a man.
Not hopefully.
I'm most,
You're
yeah.
just not going to ever do
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But I see what you're saying.
But I'm an out of shape man,
Right.
where if I ever do that, God forbid, it's not gonna kill her.
Right.
But if one person, and it's almost like the epitome of the monarchy, where like since Dany has literally all the power in name and on a giant 9,000 pound fire breathing dragon, she can just do this, and that's
Right.
just a great thing of saying like I remember like our first cast, I was probably like, maybe this is a great time for Dany to realize that democracy is great and that she's gonna.
I know,
so I
I
doubt that's gonna
know.
happen next episode with what happened today. But what were your general thoughts about it?
Well, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was, in terms of just being entertaining TV, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I really don't know how much more than that I have the right to expect at this point from a television show. But I did feel like it wasn't so inconsistent with Dany's character that when you look back, you can see the other things that she has done, like burn the Tarleys when she didn't really have to, and other things that she has chosen to do that hinted that that was inside of her, and that Tyrion was basically what was holding her back. And she just had finally had enough. So I don't feel like the hints weren't there that that was where she was headed. I don't think it was a foregone conclusion that that's where she was headed, though. And I think it could have gone either way. But I enjoyed it. I thought we got some of the moments we've been waiting to get. The time just flew by, and I was just totally spent afterwards, just exhausted. So I really don't understand some of the issues I've seen. I've been trying to stay away from people's criticisms and not read very much today, but I will do that after we've talked today.
And I've done the opposite of that, so I
Oh,
can
have
see.
you?
Because
Yeah.
they're just like, I feel like the thing that's become popular, kind of like the thing where the jokes and stuff, all that kind of stuff. Like one of the great memes I saw is like, who's gonna kill Cersei? And it's like a picture of a brick. It's like, oh, that was cool, I guess. I mean, bricks are fun, but I think it's people like freaking out, and like Angry Joe, for example, like a video game reviewer I watch, like he just posts like 45-minute rants where he's like, oh, this is my Game of Thrones, like very not that, but like very justfully being like, the Long Night was kind of dumb for this and this reason. The Battle of Winterfell was dumb for that reason. But man, let's just get right into it. We're gonna go kind of character by character because there's like so much to kind of digress. I was really glad this episode too, because it wasn't like a grand like episode 4, which we did a cast over, but we did a lot of talk about it, and overall I said like episode 4 was pretty good. We were like, I hope Danny's gonna be okay, and like a lot of our theory making was like, okay, that was kind of squashed this episode.
Yep, absolutely. And I told you I'm never good at predicting these things, but
And one of the things that was funny in my prediction is that like it said direction or like main cinematographer was Miguel Sapochnik.
yes.
I'm like, well, he filmed The Long Night, which wasn't very good, but I realize now that like The Long Night, like I said almost on our last cast, like he's just a director. He stages the action, but it's the double D's, David and Dan, who direct this show and make A and B happen, which he has to direct the action for. So it's not like I'm like, oh, Miguel Sapochnik ruined The Long Night for me, man. It sucked. But
no,
like,
he did his job very well, except
pretty well.
for the darkness.
the darkness, yeah, the darkness.
But when I saw his name as the director, because I didn't know in advance, I don't know if it was announced in advance, but I did notice it, and I thought, oh, maybe there's going to be more of a battle here than we thought there was going to be. But then I quickly forgot about, not that I expected no battle, but I realized then he's the battle guy, so this might be something a little different than what I have in mind.
And I was really worried for like the first like 30 minutes or so there's going to be no battle, and this is kind of be the episode where like Dany like becomes a good person and gives all of her power to Jon or something because she's realized she's mad, or she'll look in the mirror, I don't know, some like a cliche like telenovela style or something, be like, I am the bad guy or something like that.
No.
But I'm glad the action started like the 45-minute mark, because it was pretty awesome. It was filmed, of course, Game of Thrones, like you watch the inside the episode, which is sometimes funny for like The Long Night, where it's like, yeah, we spent 55 consecutive nights shooting, and we left that coffee cup the next episode, so it kind of ruins our whole reputation.
Right.
But it does look like $1 million. The CGI looked great. The castle falling apart looked amazing. It all looked good. Did you think anything looked weird or bad?
I thought it looked really, really good, and so much better than The Long Night. And I know that part of it was bright daylight, but it just seemed to be shot differently to me. And I don't know anything about that kind of thing, but it just looked, the colors were bright and sharp, and everything was just really easy to follow compared to those the other episodes. Even Battle of the Bastards a little bit, even compared to that, I thought it was just really easy to follow everything, and it was so terrifying, and I felt every bit of that.
And just like we never had a battle where like, I mean, I guess Battle of Winterfell, when like the crypts got opened up and Sean Bean came up and started killing people in the crypts. That was kind of the first thing of us seeing like, the casualties and brutality of war. But it just makes you think back to like the first seasons where like Jorah used to say to Dany, Khaleesi, you're giving them the best shot they can, because if we get unsullied soldiers, they won't do terrible things and unspeakable atrocities in the city like normal. Because
Right.
in Robert's Rebellion, when they sacked King's Landing, one of the terrible things that happened with fog of war and that kind of stuff was the Mountain killing all the Targaryen babies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like that's
absolutely.
and people getting sexually assaulted and all that terrible thing like that, which happens in real life in the city. People get robbed, soldiers just go crazy, but to see just the carnage of this is what it's like to sack a city, like you thought, like Battle of the Blackwater, like Bronn bragged about how he killed like every single thief in the area. That way, like, because they do. I like in the opening seasons where they say like when a siege happens, like the people go crazy, they get hungry, they'll probably turn on the leader for you, But to see this, just see like the carnage was crazy. It was
they didn't give it time to act even. I mean, they didn't even give the people time to turn on Cersei, or Dany didn't.
Because Dany's just impatient. We'll get to all the Dany stuff, but let's just talk first about the Hound. Pretty simple, kind of fulfilling story, prophecy kind of thing, which I appreciated in all this, where it's like, and kind of an episode where I'm like, well, why is Jaime doing this with all this character development? Why is person doing all of this? But the Hound has pretty much kept to his own and become a good person and kind of kept to with his character traits. Like to see him in the Cleganebowl.
Yes, Cleganebowl.
And to see him just like, because when they were like in the like the courtyard with like the map on the floor, like he's like, listen, Arya, if a ton of bricks aren't gonna kill Cersei, I'm pretty sure that Dany will eat her, or like Drogon will eat her.
Right.
So like he's like, see you later, girl. You're gonna die here, just like I'm gonna die here. So he sends her away. It's kind of like the epitome of his character arc, and Arya saying like Sandor, which I feel like we've heard his name like 3 times in the show.
Yeah, she's never called him by Sandor, I don't think.
She said thank you,
Yes.
And like that. I mean, for a character like the Hound, where he's just like, I feel like his life has just been just real depressing. Not a great one, not the worst one either. But it's been like, I want to kill my brother, and that's it. To see someone like Sansa or Arya say like thank you, it's good,
Yes, and I do think Sansa had that moment with him last week, where she wouldn't have even gone over and talked to him if he hadn't shown her kindness before. He's had that in him all along. He was just in a very bad spot in his whole life, right? Like a lot of these people are. But he definitely talked Arya out of making a very bad decision. And so that was sort of his redemption. He knew that it was too late for him, but it wasn't too late for her, not by a long shot. And so to hear her call him by his given name and thank him, that was a pretty amazing moment for both characters.
Just like, because they did have kind of like that brotherly, not even relationship like that on the road and stuff, where like he's like, if you're gonna use that rock to knock me out, you better kill me. And
right.
He's always had such great like Quentin Tarantino lines. Like when he was in that scene with like people called him Sandor. I don't know, Colonel Sandors, when like he was like, I'm going to eat every single chicken in
Yes,
this room.
Bring me all the chickens.
So if like someone closing his sword on like the Hound, like I thought he was a great character and I thought he was awesome. I love I don't know if you've seen any of the reviews, the interviews with Rory McCann. With like what a funny Rory McCann sounds exactly what the Hound would be if he had to change his name.
Yes, it does, and it's a name I can't say very well.
But
Rory McCann.
One thing he said in his interview was like, "Yeah, I love this show," and he has like a funny, cool, thick British accent. He's like, but one thing I'm not gonna love about the show is having to shave my effing beard every time, because he does have to shave his beard like down to like between his ear to his like his
for where
goatee,
it doesn't grow
where
scars.
his scars. Yeah, did his
okay,
scars look kind of weird this episode?
I thought they looked
yellowy.
improved. Oh, you thought they looked yellow? I thought they looked a little better.
Orangey.
Beats me. I don't know. I imagine that makeup's hard to get totally consistent every time. But I think that, first off, almost everything he's ever said on the show has been brilliant. He doesn't say very much, but you can count on him to have the best lines.
And he's cool. It's because he's not like a Tyrion, like, oh, we must believe in the realm of Westeros because we all are logic people. He's like, move aside. And
Right,
it's like, it's nice to have just like a simple, like, Logan Wolverine, like, get out of my way or I'm going to bust your face in with your butt or whatever.
Yeah, he sees reality, and he really doesn't mind saying what the reality is. And there was somewhere in the background, maybe it was when I watched last week's episode again, and they were all at the feast. He was the only one eating. I think it was when Dany called Gendry over, and you thought she was maybe about to kill him, or you didn't know what
like he
she
didn't
was going
care.
to
He's
do.
just like,
And yeah, he just kept eating, and you're looking at the whole scene, and everybody in there is just mesmerized by Dany and Gendry and this interaction they're having, and there sits the Hound just eating.
But I thought Cleganebowl was pretty good. It is kind of like, it's realistic that like they didn't have like a grand like mountain versus viper fight with like a crowd, which I would have appreciated or something.
Yes,
with, like,
yes.
I'm sure there's gonna be some great edits where it's like a former FFC fighter or something narrator guy is gonna be like, in the left corner we have Sandor Clegane weighing in at. I'm sure there's gonna be some funny fan edits like that, but it seemed pretty realistic, and I loved the scene where like literally everything crumbled around Cersei except the floor, luckily. And
right. And then she's just sort of was slinking past.
She's like, I'm out.
They're not going to notice if I just sort of slink by here.
Yeah, so
that was funny.
And just seeing the Mountain, who's been kind of, they haven't really explained it super well, that if he's just a straight up zombie, but he has a soul / mind / he can make his own actions, because he chooses against Qyburn and Cersei. Because when Qyburn introduced the Mountain again after being zombified at the end of season 5, when she did the Walk of Shame, I think he was like, Sir Gregor has taken a vow of silence. He has promised to not stop until all the enemies are killed in your name. But obviously, it seems like Gregor, aka the Mountain, is just like, hey, this is Cleganebowl. I don't care about you, Cersei, because I guess he has his own mind. He's not mind controlled by.
I don't think
Frankenstein
they were ever quite clear what had happened there, but it was after he got injured, in the fight, and I didn't know if he actually died. And Qyburn managed to sort of bring him back in the same way like that the Night King does a little bit, or if he lobotomized him, or what exactly happened. And I guess it wasn't meant to be totally clear.
Which is kind of annoying too, if the whole like Night King thing of like, I mean, I'm not expecting Qyburn to be like, and this is how and he pulls down the whiteboard, has his little stick and his pointer, I did this and this, but I think George R. R. Martin has even said, this is a random fact, who cares, but they said that basically there's a difference between fire wights and ice wights. So, for example, Jon and Beric, who were brought back by the Lord of Light, apparently, which we don't know because Lord of Light's gone, which was a scene in last week's episode. But basically, if you're brought back by the Lord of Light, you're a fire wight, kind of like what Jon is, I guess. Yes. But if you're brought back by the old magic / the Night King, you are an ice wight.
Okay.
But then it's kind of a thing of like, so what kind of wight is
he's not either
zombie?
One of those. I think he's more of a Frankenstein.
But the fact
thing.
that like during the fight, which is pretty good, I think the CGI in that compositing shot was pretty good. It's kind of floaty. Cause look at the background where like everything's like tumbling down. It wasn't the best like looking like as opposed to they just had like in a corridor. But when the Mountain got stabbed, by the way, I was so scared if like they were gonna go full Game of Thrones and like he was gonna the Viper his face by like crushing his eye sockets in and stuff. Gosh, that was scary. But Sandor stabbed him in the eye through the back of the skull, which is kind of like what Arya said back in like season 3, where it's like, I'm going to take a knife and stab it right through your skull someday.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
The fact that Gregor took the knife out of his socket that went through his brain, because like even like Walking Dead rules, or like even like the ice wights, if you shoot like, and we saw in the Battle of Hardhome, if you shoot like a zombie wight through the eye, it's not going to kill them.
Right. It didn't get rid of them for good, but it slowed them down.
Kind of. But for Gregor to get like a pretty big knife through his eye socket, through the back of his head, that seemed like kind of like cheesy, like early 70s, like, oh, my face is melting off, but it's actually crayon or something melted crayon. What did you think about that?
Well, I actually thought that would mean that it was over. I thought for a split second, very foolishly, that getting that direct a hit into his brain would do the job. But once again, he was not actually alive. And we don't, Qyburn was weird. The whole reason he was suspended from the Citadel or expelled from the Citadel was for doing experiments on dead people. Right. So we don't really know what the deal was with the Mountain, and
we never will. What's the Night King's motivations?
Will. And but I had hoped for a second he would be gone. But I think the way that it ended was better. But yeah, that moment of where the Hound got the knife right through his eye and through the back of his head. Yeah, I just thought
there's gonna be a really good fan edit where it's like it's in like punching sounds, like Rocky stop. But like the kind of the grand symbolism of his hero's journey of like pushing his brother into the fires of Mount Doom / the Keep. It's pretty ironic when you think about it too. But yeah, the Hound, great character. I loved him. He was really good. I loved his relationship with Arya, and he kind of sent her off the best way. So Arya will remember like he wasn't a good man. Kind of like there's been a lot of great fan edits of like the Logan trailer for Wolverine, it's called Sandor or something like that.
Yeah.
By the way, I loved Qyburn's death. So funny.
It couldn't have been
out
more
of nowhere.
Perfect. Yes, just over. That was it. Done.
It reminded me of gone. Like a classic like Pycelle moment of like, well, I'm the Grand Meister of the and then Cersei's like, get out of here. You're like 97 years old.
We don't want to talk to you.
Slowly leave this room very slowly. Like I want to see a fan edit of like every time Qyburn's like, well, actually, my grace, and ka-chunk against his door. Because like, by the way, do you think Qyburn's still alive? He's gonna come back?
No,
his head was absolutely. That was a pretty lol funny moment. And I'm a pretty dark person when it comes to like we're watching kind of a dark drama, and I'm like, oh, that was funny because like I knew it was coming. It was like seemed like very strange for someone to do that, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But Jaime, and we'll talk about Jaime and Cersei, kind of the same thing here. But Jaime, I read a lot of criticisms and funny memes where, like, besides the fact that there were some funny moments, like when he was trying to walk up to the Red Keep and like he was like waving his metal hand, like, "Hey, it's me, local celebrity."
I was wondering, does somebody have the ring cam, on their door? Like, was he holding it up to the ring?
Yeah. It's
say,
like,
"Oh, look,
Jabba's palace." But It was pretty dumb of him, like, because, like, Tyrion had the whole plan, which we don't even need to talk about, like, Tyrion's whole plan of,
Oh
like,
my
hey,
gosh.
you're going to get Cersei and sail off the Pentos in the sunset, baby,
Be
let's
so
go.
Happy.
But, like, I was really hoping there'd be a scene in the... also, I loved the Hounds and Arya's technique of sneaking in. Like, there was a 6'6" man next to a 5'1" girl. And the Hound is like, because, like, you say, like, oh, you say, Jaime Lannister is the most handsome man in the realms, and like there's so many peasants when they were walking with like her and Brienne, like, oh, I recognize that guy. That's Jaime effing Lannister.
Right.
I
They
saw
also,
him.
yes.
I conveniently saw him at the tourney of Lannisport or something. But it's like if Sandor is 6'6" and has a half a burned face and a big beard, I think it's pretty recognizable in this world, just like
Yes.
Tyrion is.
Right.
But I was really hoping there'd be a scene where Jaime walks up to the Red Keep, like waving his golden hand, and the guard's like, "Yeah, over here. Here's a side door." But then, like, he's like, "Okay." Jaime's like, "Okay, great, thank you. I'm gonna go see my sister." He's like, "Okay, nice try, pal. Get in the back of the line." And there's just a line of Jaime lookalikes, people trying to seek asylum, or it's like a bunch of guys look exactly like him with golden hands. That's happened like in an '80s movie, probably.
Yes,
but
and Funny or Die needs to do that.
But Jaime's kind of thing I've heard a lot of complaints about is that he has had like the last 5 seasons of his character arc / not hero's journey, but you know, his arc of becoming a good man in the last 7 seasons of this show, which has kind of been his arc. Do you agree? If like that's kind of his main
Oh, absolutely.
becoming an honorable man. And I feel like going back to Cersei is like seeing like an addict get clean and then just go back to heroin.
Yeah, that's
overdose.
a really good way to.
What did you think about
describe
all
it.
that?
Because I think that he was on an arc, he was on a hero's journey, and in the end, he couldn't stick with it. And so I think you're exactly right. He was too far gone.
It's a very human thing too, because you know, it's nice to have the story, the PG-13 version of like, because like, for example, like Forrest Gump. This is a weird example, but like she was high. She was like an addict, I guess, of something, of cocaine and
Yes.
stuff like that. His wife, Jenna.
Jen
And she just like, but she just like was a pretty bad person. Like she had sex with Forrest once, had his child, which we're hoping is his child, and just like she wasn't a great person compared to Forrest. But like this is a weird example. But you know, just the fact that like addicts and people who love, and that was his main weakness, and it's very human for him to go back for the person you love. Like people posted the 5-second clip of Bronn during their lame time they went to Dorne to get Marcella,
right.
being like, how do
Yeah.
you want to die, Jaime? Winks at the camera, and Jaime's like, I want to die in the hands of the woman I love, which I guess is what he did. And it's one of those annoying things where it's like, no, Jaime was with Brienne, but he hit it and quit it just like Arya did with
Yeah.
But I felt like it was a greater connection, but just like he went back to his love, and that's his sister mama who's gonna have his baby.
His sister mama. She
I don't
was his fatal flaw. She's his fatal flaw, and I do believe that he loved her in a way that she was never capable of loving him back. And that's really, really sad. And I think that in the end, he just couldn't overcome that connection and what he felt with her. And I foolishly believed he was going back to King's Landing to kill her.
Yeah, because he said, people say like the line he said to Brienne last week where he said, she is hateful and so am
So am
I.
I.
I assume like that was, some people say that was a line to like make Brienne like hate him so like he could push her way better. But I guess I was really hoping when they were hugging in the courtyard on the top of the map of Westeros, that she's like, "Oh, I love you," and like stab the sword right now, stab her when you're hugging her, so she can die in your arms and fulfill like the brother prophecy from the book of the brother killing her. But he didn't stab her, which was kind of disappointing. But I guess,
but also, you know, sort of the bricks, the stones, the weight of his attraction to her did them in, I guess, is a symbolic way to
The
look at them
bricks
being
of
crushed.
love.
The bricks of love, the things I do for love. These bricks are all going to fall on us. And the fact that he was there and said, look at me, to take her mind for that brief split second off of the fact that she was about to die. Ultimately, he did pay that price for her.
It's realistic and stuff, but I think too, like, she doesn't really deserve that because she did blow up the Sept of Baelor and do a lot of bad stuff.
She's a horrible person, but like I said, I never felt like she was capable of loving him the way that he loved her.
It really is like the ultimate version too, because the fact that they are lovers, they're siblings, but also they're twins. Like it's the ultimate Shakespearean thing of like, this is the person I'm meant to be with, you know? Because like
every living moment, right? And so they came into the world together and they died
Left
together.
the world together. And it does kind of fulfill the prophecy. I forget, there's a certain name for the prophecy. That's something cool, probably like Valadu and Lagadu or something like that. But I guess technically Cersei did die in the being strangled by her brother in love when she died. Because the whole thing is like, I think the prophecy in the book is you will have 3 children, gold will be their crowns, and gold will be their shrouds, and you'll die by your brother, which was in the book, but not in the TV show. So I guess technically she died by her brother's hand of love, which is kind of nice, just one hand. I'm like, yeah, it'd be kind of hard for Jaime to strangle her. Like,
oh, yeah.
but that was, I think, Cersei as well, because Cersei didn't die out like a hackling witch in a Disney movie. Like, she's been kind of compared to like all of her she has some sweet outfits, by the way, great outfits in the show, but all of her dresses and stuff, like, she didn't go down like evil queen, like enchanted style or something. She went down like a human being when she realized she was losing. It's kind of weird because she hasn't had much to do these last few seasons. But yeah, we're talking about Cersei. So did you have anything else you want to say about Jaime?
No, just that I think that he resisted the happy ending that he could have had and I think comparing it to addiction is a really good thing to compare it to, because he was too far gone. And but yeah, Cersei, I mean, she showed one of the few moments of humanity she has ever shown, maybe arguably the only moment of humanity she has ever shown on the show right before she was going to die.
Yeah, because sometimes we feel, the show kind of wants us to feel pity for Cersei, like, for example, when she did the Walk of Shame. But that was completely her fault. I mean,
I never felt pity for her.
It's strange because, like, for example, Dany, which we'll compare to later, like, Dany, we've seen her get technically sexually assaulted by Khal Drogo, even though they were married, which wasn't like consensual, I guess. I think in the books it might have been a little easier, but like we've seen Dany go through so much stuff, so we're like, yeah, like in season 3, we're like, yeah, Dany, you keep burning people. This is awesome. There's gonna be no repercussions in Westeros. But yeah, it is Cersei's kind of whole thing. It's kind of a shame she didn't have a lot to do these last like 2 seasons because she had just been in charge and been the queen. I feel like a lot of her character has been about her children and stuff, but now she's pregnant, which I guess we're completely confirmed that she was pregnant.
Yes, it would appear
Woohoo,
so.
good for her, I guess.
Yes.
I think we would have seen a baby bump after all this time or something.
Very confusing.
Oh, well.
I don't know. But she was still maintaining to Jaime that she was, and so I assume she had no
the
reason
ultimate
to
lie
at that point.
But Qyburn's diagnosis of the situation reminded me of like a Stannis, where like Davos comes up to Stannis season 5, like, hey, all the horses died, the sellswords left, I ate your breakfast, your wife just committed suicide, we just burned her daughter, the Red Witch just left, and Stannis is like, Qyburn being like, we lost everything, what do we do? Cersei, just seeing Cersei cry and just fall and fail, it was satisfying in the moment, but then it soon turned to ash in our mouths as the fan base.
Yes. Yeah.
But she's done some bad stuff, and she definitely deserves dying. But so does Jaime when you really think about it. Like, Jaime, because the fact that he went back to her, I guess is one way you could view it is like he kind of honored his love towards his sister, and he's all about honor. But at the same time, loving your sister isn't very honorful, and going back to that kind of addiction, just comparing like the morality, it's annoying to be like, compare like the morality, man, of like Dany and Jon, like Dany's not a good person anymore, but to think like Jaime tried to be good, but he still was addicted to his sister, and I think Cersei and his death was pretty poetic and good in how it all ended. I did like, however, like I thought for a second, like they do like, because like I'm like in this point of the show, there's not gonna be any kind of cliche Deus Ex Arya of like, because like for example in The Long Night there's so many shots of Brienne just being absolutely sworn by White Walkers and zombies and stuff.
Oh, over and over again.
And then the next shot would be like, hey, I'm okay. So I was really thought for a second they would like climb into the dragon skull. And then, like, the next episode, like, hey, we're okay, we're in the dragon skull. I'm like, that's not going to happen, no.
No, I mean, thank goodness. Although I did keep thinking Arya might show up down there where they were in the dungeon because she was still wandering around and we weren't sure exactly where. But I'm glad she didn't. I didn't really want her to. And I do think that their story, that the Jaime and Cersei story ended the way it should have. And Cersei made so many bad decisions, as many people on this show do, for so long, and was really her own worst enemy over and over again.
And she's a good character, but just like I wasn't shedding any tears for like, because I remember talking about the beginning of the season where it's like, do you feel morally just? And be like, hell yeah, when Arya is stabbing a pregnant woman to death in the dark. But that's the kind of thing I want to argue about the baby's innocent and stuff like that, which is what Tyrion kind of begged her last week.
Yes.
But I feel like things would have gotten different if like Jaime was with her the whole time, because the fact that like Dany was able to, well, I'm trying to jump around here, but the fact that like she just seemed like she still underestimated Dany so much. So like, here's a good question, because Cersei and Euron had never really seen the devastation of a dragon attack, like the loot train attack. Do you think there's any reason why Cersei shouldn't have just killed Drogon right there when Missandei was executed last episode? Because Cersei will play dirty, but so why didn't she just fire a shower of arrows to kill Dany, to kill at least Drogon, and to kill Tyrion, and to kill everyone? I feel like, because you really think about, like, it's not like Cersei, like even when they had like their Geneva Accords parley in season 7, I still was thinking like, okay, all of our good guys are in the dragon pit alone.
Oh, right.
Cersei's not there. Okay,
right.
time for Dracarys of the wildfire explosion.
Right.
There really is no reason why Cersei wouldn't have played dirty to win with her unborn child.
I assume that they were out of range.
I guess Drogon was pretty far off, but I feel like she would at least try or do something. I just do think that it does make. I do think it's kind of weird. I guess Cersei is a very arrogant and smug and like. She's been a very annoying person where she's like, oh, I have everything, I'm in control now because I'm the queen. But the fact that she didn't have any extra plans, like, I don't know, like,
no, just the scorpions, and that was it.
And that was it. And like, she didn't have anything. She didn't have like a thing up her sleeve of like, oh, but I have like, and we'll talk about all the stuff that happened where like it was a pretty good morality like kind of situation that happened in this episode where it's like the whole ringing of the bells, will Cersei surrender, all that kind of stuff. But the bells, I thought for a second that Cersei would have to give the order for the bells to be rung, but then someone just like then some brave red shirt ran up there and just ringing the bell. So I thought, what's the point? She didn't have any plan. She didn't have like, oh, Dany, but I have the whole city hostage because I have put wildfire, the Mad King style, everywhere in King's Landing. So Dany, you better surrender or I'm going to blow. Like, she didn't have any other cards up her sleeve, which kind of makes me. Like, she's not a tactician, but I do think it's kind of dumb. So
because she always had something.
Something.
Like. She always. You're right. She always had another card to play.
But she's arrogant. So.
But yeah, she just thought that there was no way that they could be beat. And but isn't that the problem with many people who go into war in real life or in TV or in movies? They think, well, there's no way we can be beat. And guess what? There's always a way. It's
funny because like it's almost like the Death Star, and it's like, how can what? It's like every single like funny parody video where it's like the Emperor being like, how did one starfighter blow? There's a tiny little hole. You tell me that was an inside job, or like, because it is kind of like they had one dragon and it did everything. Like one dragon was
all it took in the end.
So we'll talk about all that kind of logistic stuff in just a second here. But Jon, you done talking about Cersei? You got everything out there?
Yeah,
you think?
Good.
Right, awesome,
good.
Sweet. So Jon was kind of, it reminded me a lot of like what the situation Ned was in, because I read in the books and I read like some YouTube videos about like, basically how Robert's Rebellion went down, and like I feel like one of the reasons why Ned and Robert kind of got separated after like the years of fighting and stuff, and after the Greyjoy Rebellion, after Robert's Rebellion, was the fact that Ned really did not like Robert being okay with Tywin Lannister ordering the Mountain to kill all the Targaryen babies. Like, Ned was an honorable man, so like he didn't appreciate the sack of the city and all the death and violence like that.
No, I think you're exactly right.
That's the reason why that's the reason why Robert and him became so separated. Like, it was so like in season 1 when like the first time ever, like Robert's in the small council, like, we need to kill the Targaryen girl, and Ned's like, she's just a girl, and I mean, maybe they should have, thinking like now.
Apparently, it looks like it would have been a good idea.
But I think it's a good kind of reflection of that, because like this is another big rebellion wartime. I mean, it's definitely worse, but Jon just wants to be honorable and follow his queen. He didn't have a lot to do this episode, but it kind of reminds me, yeah, like that situation with Ned and the Targaryen children when they were murdered by the Mountain and all that kind of stuff. But what was he thinking throughout this entire episode of just like, the loyalty is good and I will be loyal to my queen? I do think he did have an awesome, I'm going to call this punching the New Yorker moment. So basically, this happens in a lot of cinema where like we might be following a character like Walter White, or like a Netflix show called You, my sister and I did a podcast over, where you kind of follow a dubious protagonist where it's like, this guy is like a drug dealer, he's kind of not a great guy. But then what you have to make him like seem like a hell yeah moment for Walter White is you have a douchebag or like annoying guy be like, walk into a room with like that scene like has in Breaking Bad where like his like some bullies make fun of his son's disability, Walter Jr.
Right.
And then Walter White like kicks their butts, and like I'm surprised he didn't get sued for that. But like you're like, heck yeah, Walt, you beat those racists, or like that time like there was that really a smug guy who was like had like that nice car, and he was like had like a Bluetooth and like and waiting in the bank line like, hey, listen, toots, I'm a misogynist, get out of here. And it reminds me of like stuff where like dubious character who is our protagonist punches New Yorker who's like,
somebody
hey,
who's even worse.
Hey,
right?
women be women, am I right, pal? Hey, want some cocaine? I'm a bad guy. So, like, luckily, Ned. So, in case you're wondering if Jon's still a good man, he did stop that attempt sexual assault by that, I'm guessing, Stark soldier.
Right, in case you needed to. No, that was, wasn't that a Lannister?
No, I thought it was one of his own men or something.
Oh, yeah, but probably.
It was kind of cheesy of, like, there's a classic, like, saving the cat moment that, like, every hero has, like, in a classic romantic comedy or something like that, where it's like, oh, this guy helped his daughter and pretended to and gave her a kitten. That's nice of him. Like saving the cat moment where it's like this guy's a good guy. Which
and we didn't need to be reminded
a bit on the nose. I mean,
I think that it was part to show what all was going on, because we certainly got horrible, horrible moments over and over and over again to show that things had really gone awry and that things were not under control at all. But yes, I agree. I did not need to know once again that Jon's a good guy. Oh, Jon makes me tired.
So Jon, the whole thing, I'm surprised honestly that Dany didn't just execute him for treason for telling Sansa about his lineage and stuff. Because we talked about last week's episode about like, does he have any right to tell Sansa and Arya the truth about his lineage? And we talked about it a little bit. I remember listening to us, but I think he's taken Ned's rule book, but at the same time, like he's learned everything about to be an honorable man from his father, Ned, aka his uncle. But even Ned kept that secret of him being a Targaryen. So
right.
We said it did seem weird that he would follow he's followed his father and everything he ever taught him. He's been an honorable, honest man. But when it comes to that one secret that even Ned kept, and Ned,
then he didn't keep it. Yeah, it's. I think it's probably an example of not having the wisdom that Ned maybe had that Jon never had, like knowing that being honorable is the right thing to do, but having the wisdom to understand what that really means and when it matters, and not being able to foresee what would happen, which is exactly what did happen. And just, because not telling, he felt like he had to tell them. And then he made Bran do it. But he
didn't make Bran do it. Bran told him he should do it, or it's his choice. But
yes, and isn't that, if Bran is saying to you, it's your choice, then maybe you should think, perhaps I should rethink this decision. But I think it's sort of like almost like following to the letter every little detail of being that honorable man. And it's sort of turning it on its head, because that should be a good thing. But in this particular case, he needed to also temper that with a little bit of wisdom.
And that's strange, because honor is good. Honor is like the only thing that Jon values. I love that scene in season 7 when he refused to tell Cersei that he already pledged his allegiance to Dany. He said, if we all start telling lies, then nothing means anything anymore. Mm-hmm. But the fact that even Varys and Tyrion are able to... Because it's kind of a good theme in these last season and a half of like, do you follow an unjust ruler but still try to be good to the people and still try to do what is best for the realm? I think, obviously Jon's going to have a lot to deal with in the next 2-hour finale
right,
of the whole
the
season.
bit that we have left.
Because it's crazy like that Jon is just realizing I don't know how many rumors cross the narrow sea about like Dany just burning slavers and stuff like that to the ground and doing a lot of bad stuff. Like Jon just realizes like, yep, this is the breaking point. Like it's just like for what happened this episode of Dany, and we won't get to it, but just like everyone is just like, yep, this just happened, and just seeing Jon's face like, ugh.
Well, and it sort of makes them, I think, look back over all the other things that they know about, and probably no one person knows about all of the stuff except maybe Tyrion.
A lot of them are dead.
But, right. But it makes them look back and maybe look at things a little differently, which is what I think it did for the viewer as well. But I do think that there is a balance between the honor and the loyalty and wisdom that Jon lacks and that Tyrion lacks too, really. Come to think of it, Varys had it, but he's now dead.
Let's talk about Tyrion right now, because I've heard some complaints as well that you don't talk about Jon, by the way. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I'm good.
Tyrion, he's trying. It's kind of lame, like we've said in the last few casts, about how Tyrion really has goofed up his kind of main character thing. Because you think, like, when he joined Dany in season 5, he was trying to do good for the realm by instituting Dany as a rightful ruler, right? Like, Varys has always said, "Oh, I'm doing this for the realm," and we can, like, diagnose this whatever with his actions, what happened like in like last seasons. But I feel like Tyrion's always been trying to help people, I guess, or just be smart. I guess he likes that too. But Tyrion has had not a lot of great moments these last 4 seasons of succeeding, and we've choked up some of those faults to the plot. So, for example, when he wanted to make the deal with the slavers of Essos, but then they broke their word. Like, that plan worked, but they broke their word. So you can kind of argue, like, oh, well, it's not Tyrion's fault because it was a good plan to end slavery in 7 years and continue that practice for 7 years. But like, even Dany wasn't there to officiate that. So just the fact that Tyrion tried this episode. But at this point, like, I'm just expecting by next episode a crazy Ocean's 11. Oh, it turns out Varys and Tyrion were working together the whole time, and the last letter that
crazy reveal.
The last letter that Varys sent was to the armies of Dorne, and they all have dragon spears too. What? And then, because I think, like, unless Tyrion does something crazy or gives an awesome speech and is then Dracarys by Dany, like, Tyrion needs to do something to, like, redeem himself and redeem what he stands for, because what does he even stand for?
Right. Yeah, he has always been so incredibly empathetic because of being a little person and the way he's grown up and the way he's been treated. That's the one thing he has always had going for him. And he's got this incredible empathy, but again, he had the fatal flaw of loving his family, as Dany has pointed out several times. But I felt like the first 10 or 15 minutes of this new episode, of episode 5,
the bells,
episode 5, I lost it for a minute there, was just Tyrion saying the same things he said last week and the week before and the week before. You don't want to do this. Don't you want to have these innocent people? You don't want to hurt these innocent people. And he's right, but it seems like since they do remind us how clever he is all the time, he could come up with some other way to show her. But just like Cersei was out of any new cards, I guess Tyrion's out of new cards too.
It's interesting because I'm thinking, like, how can I compare, like, Dany to the Mad Queen or to Cersei and stuff like that. Dany didn't, like, this show has a lot been about, one of the main themes is, like, family and doing things for family. So just like Catelyn making that decision to let Jaime go and all that kind of decisions, like Cersei has done for her children, and like Tyrion is barely able to tell Cersei something and appeal to her better nature, which is her children. But like, Dany has no better nature or any kind of family to ground her. So I feel like it would have been better, like in that scene, which was really funny between Dany and Grey Worm, she gave, like, oh, this was her one slave necklace. Here, former slave, have this.
Right.
She gave it to Grey Worm.
Some chains.
And then Grey Worm just threw it into the fire. By the way, I made a funny video where I put, like, on Instagram, you can put, like, titles on characters and stuff and pin them to them. I put, like, George R.R. Martin on Dany handing the script to the double Ds, and then he throws it into the fire. But I feel like Tyrion isn't close enough to Dany to temper her. Because you think about, like, Jon has had around 15 characters. Let's talk. I won't get that real quick. So Tyrion, like we said, I really hope he does something next episode where he does a great speech and he gets the masses to slaughter Dany. Yay! Or Tyrion now lost his family. He's alone in the world. It's like he's lost Varys. Like, what is Tyrion going to do? And I think it was interesting that he told Dany he snitched on Varys. So I don't know what Tyrion's going to do next. But I didn't want to get on Dany real quick. So anything else you want to say about Tyrion?
Well, yeah, just what do you think about him snitching on Varys? Did he really have a choice there? Did he have to do that?
I think he wanted to just appeal to her better nature like he always does. Like, even like when Tyrion tried to appeal to the better nature of Joffrey, which was, like, is kind of a losing battle where, like, for example, when Joffrey was, like, beating Sansa after they lost that defeat to Robb, like, Tyrion's like, this is your future wife. Come on, this is for the betterment of the realm. Don't do this to this poor girl. So for Tyrion, who just tries to tell the truth to Dany so that way he can create still be a voice in her head that she'll appreciate and that she'll still listen to him. So I think it makes sense that he ratted on Varys, because I feel like Varys and him should have had a plan otherwise to overthrow Dany. But the fact that Varys talked to Jon at the beginning of the episode and Jon said he didn't want it, I think Varys knew. Like if Jon said to Varys on that beach, like, "Hey, definitely here's,"
I'll
and
do
Varys
this.
could have been, "Here's the plan," and puts out a whiteboard and has this stick and points to everything. But because Jon said no, and Varys realized, was just like, well, that didn't work, and then just is like,
and that's when he starts writing the letters.
Takes off his rings and stuff.
Yeah.
He was writing letters. He was writing letters at the beginning of the episode too.
Yes, he was writing them, and I wonder how many actually got sent, because when it came time to burn one, he only had one.
So yeah, we can talk about Varys right now too.
But
like Varys and Tyrion have been the smart, logical men in this episode and in this whole series too. So for Varys to be kind of dumb in practice, like I said, like he died doing the right intentions. But we still don't know if he already had a plan in motion before he was burnt alive by Drogon. Maybe he, like I said, maybe he sent a letter to all the corners of the realm.
Of those went out.
By this point, like, Dany has a dragon, and unless like someone gets like a pinpoint accuracy gun like they had in last episode for dragons, it's like as long as Dany basically is Superman in this world and can do anything she wants with a dragon, it's not going to end well for whatever. But Varys, I love how Varys' main plan to overthrow a dragon queen monarch is to scribble a few notes and talk to a 6-year-old.
Right, a whisperer.
That was his main plan. It seems kind of the lame thing of like, oh, the Night King, that was the whole Night King. He has no backstory, origin, nothing. But Varys tried. He didn't try very well. I'm hoping by next week that like Tyrion finds an old letter that was given to him by Varys, which is an Ocean's 11 trick to kill Dany, and it's crazy. But I think it was Varys died for the betterment of the realm, but he didn't do a very good job. I don't know.
Well, and I don't want to get off topic here, but Samwell may know a trick.
Samwell could do something, but like we said, because Dany is Superman with that dragon. Unless we get Euron back from the dead to have pinpoint accuracy, what can we do, you know?
Well, Samwell may know.
Ooh.
Samwell may have read it in a book. But yeah, it was very interesting, and the way that Tyrion and Varys ended things. That's the only other thing I'll say about it, was just, again, you saw that empathy from Tyrion that he has, that has been his character's real strength.
It's so funny because like with the Hound and Arya, like
right, it's
hey,
not like he's difficult to recognize.
This is the Middle Ages where everyone's 5'1". Is that a 6'6" person with half a scarred face coming towards the Capitol? I mean,
and is that a 3-foot person right there? Just like
a man with a bright golden hand.
Beach. Right. It's these people are not hard to see.
But anything else you want to say about Tyrion and Varys? Or?
Yeah, just that moment I thought was really an amazing moment for whatever ends up happening to Tyrion. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, because you just think like this is the end game now. So I'm just thinking like, what? You gotta do something, and even if you get dragon fired for it, I mean, what are you gonna do? I do like the quote too, a quick Sansa thing about how like Dany says like, oh, this is Sansa's fault because she told Tyrion. I feel like it is kind of, I do. It's strange because if Dany didn't know the Targaryen truth about Jon, would she be this crazy? Do you think?
I don't think it helped matters. I think it's just one more thing on top of all of these other things, like losing Jorah, and then the way Missandei died. I can never say her name right.
The double D's in like the inside the. Did you see the inside the episode?
They never say it. They never say it the same way.
They said
right.
the way that
Missandei.
Missandei.
Yeah, I never feel quite so bad when even they don't say things the same way they're said on the show. But I think all of these things, going all the way back to season 1 with her brother, have added up on top of Dany. I definitely think, to sort of crush her and turn her into what she has become. So I do think that that it mattered in terms of being yet one more thing.
She felt betrayal. And we're gonna get into the full Dany thing, which we can talk about everything in this episode, of course. But so Sansa, I was always like, it's meanwhile in Winterfell, like Sansa's like, oh my gosh, Gilly, what do you do, girl? If it's a girl, what are the girl names? And Bran just like, there's some great things. It's just like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, just like Bran just chilling in there, like on a pool or on a float or whatever. But Arya wanted to help people, and I mean, I heard kind of thing where it's like, oh, Arya's helping these civilians, so like she's not just a goddess of death anymore. She wants to help people, and by helping people, because I feel like she wanted to kill Cersei, but like never for like the good of the realm. She's always said like it's a part of her list, it's her vendetta.
Yes.
But I feel like now, like after what she's seen this episode of her great plot armor saving her from Dragonfire, she's like, okay, I can help people by killing this queen.
Right, because you're right. Her problem with Cersei was personal more than anything else. It was because of Ned. So it was, but this, I mean, the horror in Arya's eyes as she watched these things, and I think that's why we saw so much of it through her eyes, is to see what she was experiencing, and the realization she was coming to is like, my God, this has got to be stopped. I mean, that's what I think. Great
one shot too. I think it might have been hidden with all the explosions, but great one shot of her like running through everything. Sometimes you don't notice it, but yeah, it was a pretty good shot of like, of course this all looks like $1 million, and they had like 650 extras for this.
Oh wow.
They also introduced the red shirt of the episode, that woman with her child.
Yes.
Which is always funny because it's like, hey, it's knockoff Shireen who's the red shirt who survived ironically, but yeah, that mother and her daughter did not, unfortunately, but I saw a great thing where it's like, hey, get free plot armor. Arya gets one. It comes with a free horse.
Oh, yeah, I know. But I was hoping when that woman said, oh, take my daughter. I was like, oh, Arya will go.
Free kid.
Be Lady of Storm's End, and they'll have an automatic kid.
Yay.
And it'll be awesome. But, those are just split seconds where I really want these things to end happily. But
no.
I really don't want them to. But
yeah,
I think that I do at the moment.
There was a funny Johnny Cash, a.k.a. the Bible, where it's like, and I heard, as it were, a noise of thunder. Can I come and see? I saw a lone horse, as white as snow. Like the whole thing of like in the Bible verse, something like, you will see a lone horse and he carried death with him. Mm-hmm. Kind of that symbolism. What I think was kind of on the nose of the classic like Independence Day, where it's like there's just ashified landscape of Hollywood Boulevard, but there's a dog still alive that represents humanity and hope. Or
that's the best part of Independence Day.
Oh yeah, the dog survived.
You had to know. You were like, okay, the dog's got to be here somewhere. The dog's okay.
But Arya seems like she's on a new mission to kill a new queen now, but because all the stuff she saw of just Dany riding around. But also, let's just jump right now. Anything else to say about Arya? What do you think she might do? Or anything crazy like that?
No, I'm going to have plenty to say about her after the final episode.
Yeah, because we you really want to talk about kind of her hero's journey,
yes,
but it's not over yet. So as far as we know, she's going to become the Queen of the Ashes too. Oh, she's got a dragon. Euron. I
just can't help but laugh.
I kind of liked Euron. He came in like the beginning of season 6. He was in like maybe like 10 episodes total. He just came in kind of like, I was like, hey, I'm the new wild card out of nowhere. He was so strange because like his whole motivation was like, I'm going to have sex with the queen, and being like, I guess, man, good for you.
And he completely changed between seasons. He changed so much, in fact, that I remember I thought at one point it was maybe a different actor, but no, they just put him in some leather pants and
he looks like a rock star.
Started him up a bit.
He had like this final shirt he wore in like his Jaime fight was like he had like stars. He's like wearing like what do you call it, the fishnet? He almost was like wearing like fishnet leggings and stuff.
Yes, I heard him referred to as Hot Topic.
Yeah, he's got like
Hot Topic pirate.
He like almost has like eyeliner and stuff. Yes. But I think just him being so weird of like, you're a Kingslayer, aren't you, Jaime? Well, I'm gonna kill you because I'm a king because I had sex with the queen. Oh yeah.
I'm the king of the Iron Islands that
technically.
I'm not in charge of. But yeah, so I love that, of course, when Jaime said, "You're no king."
Yeah, and then that fight happened. I think it was pretty like he's so which some weird characters come out of nowhere. Like it's not like a Ramsay Bolton where he was set up in season 3 or something. He's the villain in season 6. Like it's just like, hey, I'm Euron. But he gave some pretty harsh stabs to Jaime. I feel like Jaime would bleed out by time. Like Jaime had to climb a lot of stairs to get to Cersei. So good for him for not bleeding out, I guess. But he took some pretty harsh blows from Euron.
There's no way he could have even moved from point A to point B as well as he did after those wounds. I don't think
it was a long knife, but also
yes.
I do think it's pretty lame. I thought it was realistic of like, wow, Jaime's gonna die trying to even just to get to the woman he loves. That's realistic. He couldn't get to her. That just happens, you know. But like for Euron, who's a great warrior, to get beat by a cripple, essentially that's what he said, to get killed by a one-armed man who was right-handed, it was kind of cheesy. It felt for him, I guess, man. You do you. But like, it's that age thing where like Jaime's one skill is that he has one golden hand. And he punched him, and even Tyrion's like, "Why do you have that thing? Isn't it heavy? It's like a bowling ball in your hand." But Jaime like throat punched him, which was pretty funny.
Yes,
with his metal hand, which really hurt. But I guess it's good for Jaime to kill someone and feel like, oh, this is satisfying. Like, Jaime didn't have anything against Euron, really. I mean, like, of course, like, Euron was always kind of crass towards his sister and stuff, which is a reason enough for Jaime to kill anyone. But Euron was pretty crazy, but I liked him. I'm going to miss his bulging eyeballs being like,
I know. He was always really good for some comic relief, his wackiness. And I did think that that it's interesting, though, that he barely beat Jaime. Well, he didn't. He got killed by Jaime, even though Jaime's, like only a tiny bit of what he once was.
And I feel like maybe they could have made that better by if like Euron was missing like a whole arm or something like that. Where like they
make it more even.
It becomes like a wheelchair jousting match. I feel like it's kind of weird for Euron to be at full capacity, just like maybe a little tired from a swim. And also he ended up on the same beach as Jaime, ironic and convenient. But yeah, just for Euron he didn't get his butt kicked. He killed Jaime. And Jaime kind of just got the better of him by grabbing a big long sword that was so long he couldn't even barely kill Euron. But like it is kind of lame how it's like I killed Jaime Lannister, a one-handed 45-year-old man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean Euron was a lot of bluster, that's for sure. He's very arrogant, a lot of bluster, and I don't think he was nearly the fighter he thought he was. But he did have really good aim.
Pretty good. Yeah, for sometimes.
Scorpions, right.
But we've dilly-dallied a lot, so I think last like 30 minutes of this is gonna be talking about Dany. But I liked it. I didn't love it. I mean, like I like seeing people burning alive, but like I don't love it anymore. But no, I mean, Dany. It's such a so like I mentioned, I kind of almost went to it earlier, but I tried to stop myself because I hate bouncing back and forth and stuff. But Dany has kind of has had a smaller cast of ensemble characters in Essos. For example, like I said with Jon, even in the Night's Watch, he met Tormund, he met Ygritte, he met Sam, he met Pip, he met Grin, he met Jeor Mormont, he met Maester Pycelle. Pycelle, who is the guy? Maester Aemon.
And Ed.
Ed, all those characters and Ghosts and stuff like that.
You're right.
But like Dany has had 3 characters with her. She's had Missandei Grey Worm, Jorah, Barristan for like a season and a half, and Daario Naharis, who's basically just Han Solo with a beard. But so for her to, for example, let's put Jon in Dany's shoes. So Jon is a Targaryen or something, but he's had all of his cast of characters of his family. So that means Arya has died on his watch. That means Sansa, Bran, Rickon, Ed, Pip, Sam. So if Jon had lost everything, would he be this crazy? I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
But because Dany has always been kind of not selfish, but kind of like arrogant, almost like Cersei, but it's almost like she justifies her actions by saying, "But I'm stopping slavery, so it's okay for me to burn nice people with goatees in Essos and stuff." But because Dany like lost so much in like 2 episodes, like she lost her son, which is Rhaegal, she lost her best friend Missandei. So basically at Dragonstone now, like Tyrion's like the new guy on the block still. So she basically only has Grey Worm, and Grey Worm isn't gonna like Grey Worm's angry. He's not gonna talk. When we mentioned earlier how she handed his ex-wife's collar, which wasn't a great idea. Like, hey, your husband that died was a prisoner. Here is ankle shackles, but. like I don't. Grey Worm's not gonna talk Dany off a ledge of killing everyone in King's Landing.
No, he's furious himself. That's what he's gonna do.
So I think it does. Like, there's a lot of things to talk about how like this seems kind of, the whole thing of her becoming the Mad Queen and Queen of the Ashes seems a bit rushed. But for her to lose basically all her ensemble cast, especially Jorah, someone who's been like, you have a good heart, Khaleesi. You must realize that people sometimes I blink and I forget you're even here. You have nice hair too. Want to hang out? My hotel rooms, I just got one. Me want some champagne? And no. I'm busy too. Never mind. I can't hang out. But Jorah being like kind of her heart and being like the person reminder that she's a good person, losing all of that, and it could have been spread out over like a season of like one episode she loses Jorah, and then she talks with Missandei for 3 episodes about her, but still trying to be a good person. But then losing Missandei, like it all seems pretty rushed. But I think what the Double D's have said of like, oh, yeah, we think that Dany, the most logical thing that could happen to Dany is if like she has been mad this whole time, and that seeing a Targaryen say like we should burn them all, it's a scary thing. Because of course the Double D's are getting torn apart. Like, they're rich, who cares? They made a lot of money off this show, but I think the decision to make her go full crazy in that moment where, like we mentioned earlier, the bells are rung by some brave red shirt who like, I don't want to die here, ring, ring, ring. For like, you just saw Dany. I'm pretty sure someone's gonna fan edit like Riley Coyote like fire coming out of her ears and like
yes.
like you hear like the tea kettle going like higher in pitch, and, like her just saying like Drogon, let's go. To have that jump for Dany and her character, I think makes sense technically, but it was pretty rushed. So for example, Jaime was kind of a jerk in the first season of this show, but over seasons we began to like him more and he became kind of a good person. But for Dany, it's like, all right, 7 seasons of her being a great person. Oh, wow, she's killing children. That's pretty crazy. It's kind of like, it is kind of similar to, I even, like, when I got home, I was like, let's compare this to Dany doing this to the King's Landing to bombing Hiroshima, and Nagasaki. But I'm like, they're totally different things, obviously. I thought about it a little bit more. But like it's almost like Revenge of the Sith, like Star Wars Episode 3, where like Anakin Skywalker has been kind of a good guy this whole time, but then he's like, he gets red eyes, and he's like, I'm gonna kill children now. But then I think like, I watched videos like why was Walter White evil, and I heard things of like I watched a really good video where like the thesis basically was that Walter White was never really a good person. Like, he was able to hide behind the family man, but his ego and his pride. And
it was always there.
And the fact that he wanted to be right, he wanted to be the best meth cooker in all of New Arizona or whatever it was, Albuquerque, a cheap place to film. But like, Dany always been an evil person? And just because now that like she's like, oh, but I lost a dragon, and I like, it just seems so cowardly of someone to lose something and just become an evil person because of it. Like, you can blame your situations in life on other people and then be mad at them. Like, maybe Dany's mad at all King's Landing for not loving her. Or, like, the fact that she crossed her arms and went, Jon, people love Jon, but I just got here and people don't like me.
I'm jealous. They don't like me as much. Because she didn't try very hard.
And she didn't try very hard. Also, it's like I said, it's that Breaking Bad thing where it's like, has Dany really been this evil Mad Queen the whole time? And she's just realizing it now, or the fans are just realizing it now because, like, one... Like, we want to believe she's a good person, but really deep inside, like, certain actions cause you to become the evil person you are. Like, so you can have that darker nature and then just get pushed beyond the breaking point. You know, like the whole Joker's thing, the Batman, or like someone, I forget who it was, but like, all it takes is one bad day and you become just like me. I think the Punisher said that to Daredevil, something like that. But I think it's a crazy jump for the character, but if I really analyze it, I have a list here of all the bad things maybe we can go through once we get your opinion on it.
There's been a lot of them.
And I do, like, comparing her to Jon Snow and stuff, like, you really think, like, Dany didn't have that much against Cersei. Sure, Cersei killed her dragon and killed her. I guess she had some stuff against Cersei. But if you compare, like, Sansa to Ramsay Bolton, like, Ramsay Bolton did everything terrible you could do to a woman to Sansa. And Sansa, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think Sansa deserved to kill him.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But for, like, Dany to do what she did, not even to the Red Keep, but to the city of King's Landing, it just blows my mind. But when you really take a second to think, like, I thought maybe we should push this to Tuesday, record it then, so I could think about it a little more. But I made up my mind last night, like, she is the Walter White of this world, where we thought she was at least a good person, or it's like, oh, I'm doing this bad thing, but I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm doing it for the realm. I'm burning these people for the realm. Walter White's doing this for his family, so it's okay. It's one of those moral things. But she really has been that character this whole time, and it's just these recent, very fast things happening to her, like that one bad day where she lost her dragon and Missandei, the same episode, which pushed her over the edge.
She lost almost everything, not just one thing. She lost almost everything in the past couple of episodes.
And it's really fun to compare, like Jon. So if Jon lost his mom, his dad, Rickon, Bran, Arya, Sansa, Samwell, Ed, Tormund, if Jon lost everybody and just had Davos beneath him, would Jon do the same things that Dany did this episode if he had the power of a dragon? And I personally think he wouldn't, because we've seen so much of him doing other stuff. He came from nothing, just like kind of Dany did. But just the fact that she's so entitled just to be like that rich kid who comes to a public school, be like, no one likes me here, so I'm going to tell my dad to sue you.
Go somewhere else.
So that's my main opinion. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that you raise some interesting points, because even though Jon came from nothing also, he was raised, he had a hard time with Catelyn, but and Sansa didn't like him, but he was raised in a loving family. Bran loved him, Arya loved him, Ned loved him, took care of him. Robb didn't mind him too much, I guess. So he had that basis of the loving family that Dany didn't have. I mean, Dany and her brother had to go from place to place, basically living off of other people's kindness, and her brother was horrible to her. So in the sense that people are just different on the one hand, but also their early experiences probably contributed to that. I mean, what kind of role model did Dany have ever?
She had the role model of Drogo, Khal Drogo, for a while, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna rule the world. Oh, you guys are terrible slavers and rapers. That's not good. But the fact that it's cool to compare those two, because imagine if Rhaegar, who was her brother, who she never met. Rhaegar was like the person, of course, who was killed in the Trident. That's Jon's father. Like Rhaegar, apparently, what Brereton said, and what some of the common people said, that Rhaegar was awesome. He sang he sang on his lute to the little people of King's Landing and donated to the orphanage, and was a cool guy. Like they even said like how Tywin planned to make Rhaegar the king, and they'd overthrow Aerys Targaryen. But if you just think about it, like if Dany knew Rhaegar like Jon knew Ned, would Dany be like, I don't have a great role model. All I have is my ancestral name of Targaryen, which means to burn our enemies to the ground. She didn't have a role model. And like, you don't need a role model to become a good person, in my opinion. Like, I mean, obviously it's important, but the fact that she had Viserys,
treating her horribly, treating her, like you wouldn't even treat a dog. He was horrible to her.
It's pretty interesting looking back at all this, because when Viserys was killed by Khal Drogo with the molten metal, gold and stuff, and she said, you look back at that episode, like episode 6, I believe, of the first season, where Dany says, like, he was no dragon. A dragon is not burnt by fire. And then when she was burnt by fire, when she was when she birthed her dragons on Khal Drogo's corpse and that witch's corpse, like sometimes you hear like that. Sometimes it takes a blood sacrifice to hatch an egg, and there were 3 people in that fire. There was the witch, there was Khal Drogo's corpse, and there was her body going in there. So you just think like, because it's the funny thing that Tyrion said last week of like, of course she believes in destiny. She went into a fire of stones and came out with
dragons.
And like it's cool because that's why she believes she's the right to rule. Also the fact she's Targaryen, which made her so like arrogant and so like prideful, as opposed to Jon, which he didn't want to be king of the North. Like the best people who are leaders are made that way. Like I bet George Washington, after like going through all those years of war, like I don't know if he wanted to be president, but people were like, hey, we all love this guy because he led us from nothing and made us what we are today. And everyone in the North is like, Jon avenged the Red Wedding. He did this, but for Dany, it's really interesting comparing the two, and now that's what's happened.
She deserves it, and she didn't. Jon told her they aren't going to like you in the North. You're an outsider. They don't know you. They aren't going to like you, and she didn't really want to do anything. Yes, it was very much a sense of entitlement that she had, and then a bit of the pouting, and sort of like her brother, if you remember how he acted, like everybody just owed him and everybody should just bow down to him and do whatever he wanted.
It is that great thing of entitlement of like, oh, people have never looked at me the same way those Dothraki are looking at her in the hut as she eats that horse's heart or whatever. Like, you have to earn it, you know? You have to, like, Jon earned it. He paid every price. He paid of his life. I mean, he even said to Tormund, like, I didn't plan for that part, doing that part of dying. But I have a list of all the bad things she's done where we can look back, and because, like, there's been some pretty dark stuff that she's done where we've been like, oh, these people were slavers, so I don't know, who cares?
So it's
I guess.
Okay, yeah.
And the people loved her, and like you think like when she like in end of season 3, I believe, where like all the slaves just like lifted her up and did like a sweet like Bon Jovi concert, crowd surfing moment with all of her adoring fans and people. She even said like the slaves decided to rebel in Marine and help me, but these people in King's Landing won't do it. And because like she said that I believe in the throne room of Dragonstone. But just to have, like, the way people chose to love her in Marine as opposed to Westeros seems so, like, it's just so drastic for her. She's like, I can't even comprehend this. Well, you know what? I'm going to burn everybody. So do you want to go through kind of a list of what she's done here? Let's start here, shall we? So a lot of weird names here. So here we go. Miri Mazdur, the Lazarean Magi responsible for effectively dooming Khal Drogo. Oh, was the witch. So she decided to burn the witch alive in the funeral pyre, undeterred by the woman's screams of pain. That wasn't great. Zoro Zohan Daxos, who is that big African-American guy who helped her in Quarth, wherever that was. So, and her Dothraki handmaiden Doria.
Right, that was cold.
What she did in that, in case anyone forgets, at the end of season 2, she locked Xbox Xoxeros and Doria, the handmaiden, who I think were sleeping together at the time or something like that. She locked those two people in like a tomb and knew they would just starve to death, I guess, which is pretty dark. And then what we got here, we have Krasnis Mo Nakalokos, betrayed and burnt alive by the Mother of Dragons in one of her earliest and cleverest acts of war. Oh, I think that was the Arabic guy who like called her like a slut and stuff in Valerian in front of her when she met Miss Sandy.
Right. Okay. Yeah. He totally deserved.
He wasn't a great guy. Cal Moro and his fellow Dothraki warlords. So that's when Dany killed all of Dothraki generals in the hut on Vaes Dothrak, and at the beginning, like the middle part of season 6, which is like the Dothraki aren't great people because they are rapers and they are stealers of women and do really bad stuff. They're kind of like the Vikings / terrible, even worse of this world. So it's kind of weird how Dany is like, I have the Unsullied who are literally castrated men who follow orders even if their nipples are cut off. And then I also have these Dothraki and they'll rape anything. It's like, yeah, that's kind of a weird balance you have of military personnel there. Varys the Spider, which happened this episode, she burned him alive, and the Tarleys and stuff like that too. You saw, like I mentioned before, like anyone who decides not to take prisoners in times of war is pretty crazy, like with the Tarleys and stuff. So, for example, like if this happened with Stannis, he probably would just lock Davos in the dungeons of Dragonstone, which Dany could have done with Varys. But the fact that she has always been so black and white which is kind of, I appreciate. Like there's been some great characters on Game of Thrones, like Littlefinger, I guess, and people like that, where it's like, I don't really know this person's motivations and stuff like that. But she's always been black and white. She's been no prisoner. You're either with me or you're against me. And
she told Varys she would burn him. That if he ever betrayed her, that she said, I will burn you myself.
And another great example of like a full black or white solution was like, I was really hoping if the whole setup, like I said, there was this big moral dilemma this episode of like, will Dany wait for the bells to ring or will Cersei refuse? But then it ended up a red shirt just started ringing the bells. I thought Cersei would have to give the order, but she didn't end up ringing the bells. So I was curious, like I thought Dany freaking out was just gonna like burn only the Red Keep completely to the ground, and that way it would be kind of like still like kind of morally gray of like Jon's like, Dany, you didn't have to do that, and I'm the governor of California, and Tyrion's like, you didn't have to do that and stuff like that. But the fact that she like went all the way black of Targaryen fire and blood, and just started burning
everybody,
just to
little kids,
just to show to Cersei that like I'm the best, I guess. Because even like at the 45-minute mark, something like that, like she burned like the entire perimeter. By the way, did she like feed Drogon cocaine or something before? Because he was flying faster than the speed of light. It was cool how she came from the sun, because like that one scene last episode where she was flying towards like all of the bad guy ships, all the Greyjoys with Euron. Like she definitely shouldn't have engaged in that fight because like they're all pointed towards her. But the fact she just came out of nowhere, like from the sky, from the sun, which is really cool. And she flew so fast. I feel like way faster than the most recent seasons of like Drogon. Like I feel like she found a knob next to one of Drogon's fins and turned him to 11.
Yes, well, unlike at the Long Night, right?
Yeah,
I mean, she wouldn't.
Which I complained about, which might have been a plot thing.
Exactly.
But like even like his fire was just like the size of like 300 yards. The radius once it hit the ground. Because you think like it was sad when Rhaegal died, but like the fact that there was no tension when she was there was tension, but like when she destroyed all the crossbows, it's like well. Even like all of like she has the Golden Company and she just burns them all immediately. I think that it would have been cooler if there was a little more tension there. That way, if like Drogon got hit twice or something in the shoulder and it was conveniently not deadly, but like the fact that like it was so easy, I was like, okay, this is when the crap is gonna hit the fan, and Dany decides to burn all the children.
Well, and she took a minute to do it. You know, it was very, very tense. She's standing there. They're waiting for the bells to ring. Then the bells ring, and then she's still thinking about it.
And the weird thing is, like, there can be moments in Breaking Bad, or there are great moments, like, for example, when it's probably a good example in Breaking Bad, but a question of like someone who has a gun pointed to someone, and like there's kind of a question that the show watchers can ask, like, did he really have to kill that person? Could he have let him get arrested or something like that? Like, he was no threat to you. Like Walter White having a gun on like killing a child or something like that. It's something like you have one bullet and that's all you can do, and you like. People argue like, oh, was it the right thing to do? But the fact that she is Superman, and it wasn't like she was in a split second of like deciding to burn Cersei or not alive, a pregnant woman alive. She absolutely decided to do strafing runs back and forth. It's not. It isn't like a classic thing of like, oh, did Jon really have to kill Ramsay Bolton that way? He could have just killed him with his sword, but he had to let him suffer, something like that. It was she decided to do that.
Right. And
there
that's
was
very
no other
disturbing.
reason.
Because it was not like a crime of passion where she just like was so angry and taken over and just couldn't stop herself. She stopped, she heard the bells, and she made the decision to do it anyway.
It's not some accident. It's like one-time affair. It's like you decide to keep doing it. So like any defense she could ever have now, which I kind of do appreciate them going all in like this, and the Double D's knowing that everything will hate this, and Emilia Clarke. I've seen like funny videos of like the cast being interviewed, being like, "This is what season 8 is," and Tyrion being like, "Oh, I was the smartest guy in Winterfell, but they put me in the crypt," and he's like, even the actor is like, "This is pretty dumb," and even like interviewers being like, "Hey, Kit Harington, who's Jon Snow, if you had to describe the season finale in one word," he said disappointing, or something. He said like depressing, something like that. But I think it would have been. They don't have enough time apparently, episode wise, even though they have $1 trillion budget, to like have this be a slow burn of her going crazy, or to have kind of a mediocre thing of her being like, Dany didn't have to burn to burn the Red Keep. And, like, there could be kind of moral questions about that. Because they had set up such a good moral situation where it's like, I never thought Dany would just burn innocent civilians. I thought she would burn only the civilians in the Red Keep because it's the Red Keep. And she could blame Cersei. There could have been a way for her to, like, to talk away. But the fact that she went all the way in, I kind of hate that fact. Because it would have been, I think it would have been better. It would have been kind of more. Because, like, you know, I feel like in the show, like, we didn't want to see Ramsay Bolton, the zoom in shot of him getting ripped apart piece by piece, because even we're like, that's really bad, and we're like, I don't want to see someone get ripped apart by dogs, even Ramsay Bolton, who deserves it. But like to see Dany like burn the Red Keep, some people were like, hell yeah, this is awesome, dragons, but then we're like, oh no, those are civilians in the Red Keep. But the fact that she just burned everything, I think is a little bit contrived and a little more lamer. The fact that she went to 0 to 100.
Well, like, certainly not gray, right?
Not
it's
gray,
not a gray
yeah.
area
Who cares
at all?
I mean, the only thing that's gray now is the smoke that's bellows.
Right, it's bellowing through, and all the green smoke mixed with it. Which
so
was
when I saw the
awesome.
green fire come up, I thought like, oh my gosh, did Dany hit all the wildfire? Did she hit all the wildfire stores, and King's Landing is going to blow up in a huge fiery detonated nuke? Because when I started seeing the green fire, I'm like, oh my gosh, is the whole place going to blow up? Which they didn't have a scene where Jon's like, the wildfire is going to explode.
Yeah, I guess I figured it was just some certain. There were some storage areas, but not nearly as much as there was before, like the Battle of the water and
or like an Aerys Targaryen or whatever.
Yeah, right. But it was definitely stored all around, and maybe nobody even knew about it anymore. But I thought that was a really nice touch, though, to have the green smoke, the wildfire.
It was a nice touch. I was wondering if like, it would have been cool too if like Dany decided to like burn only the Red Keep, but the Red Keep was resting on wildfire, and because Dany was rambunctious, all of King's Landing exploded in a giant fire explosion. Arya was killed, and Jon's upset. But the fact that like, because I thought Cersei would have something smarter up her sleeve than just have like.
Yeah, that's surprising.
She would do like a suicide, like the bomb thing, whatever you call it, like the dead man switch or whatever, where like she would tell Qyburn before his head was bashed in like a watermelon to blow up all of King's Landing. It would be Dany's fault. But the fact that it was a nice touch, there was some green things. But for a second there, I was like, oh my gosh, the whole thing.
I know. But again, the arrogance with Cersei, the arrogance with Dany, I think that the sin of pride is very much a big part of what has happened to people on this show. And, you know, the question, I guess, does come back to, is some of this Targaryen madness inherited? Is that because what I thought of when we were talking about the way that Dany grew up versus the way that Jon grew up and how they're such different people is nature versus nurture. And, you know, because Jon did have that loving base and Dany didn't, but also the madness that runs through her family, which I guess might be because of the incest for years and
years. Because like the Starks have a thing where like I'm reading the books, by the way. I read the first chapter, so I'm basically a book reader now. Like they say, like the first men still runs in the bloods of the veins of the Starks, but for the Targaryens have a little less rhymey thing where it's like. When the Targaryen is born, the gods toss a coin.
Right.
They toss a coin to decide if, like, as via the result of incest, that if it's going to be a mad queen or it's going to be a good person.
And that's what Varys said last night.
It is such a big jump for all this to happen so quickly. It feels like, but when Dany brags about like, oh, I was a Targaryen, I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. It's like. I mean, the Targaryens weren't the best rulers. I mean, obviously, we're colored by their Aerys, the Mad King, which happened, like, you know, of course, only like a few generations ago. But it's almost like, because like the fans have been like, oh, the Targaryens are so cool, they got dragons, and Dany's awesome because she's, like, not even because she's a woman, like, oh, she's a great woman in this world. Because we mentioned even last episode how there's so many great women characters in the show, female protagonists just coming from, like, for the first seasons of misogyny and getting absolutely beaten up constantly by Joffrey.
Where now they're the strongest characters.
So it is strange to me that I forgot what I was going to say, but also the fact that, like, I can't think of any. One of the reasons why I like this so much is I can't think of any other show where there's a woman protagonist, basically, and, like, we love her. She's awesome. She's, like, broken all the wheels of feminism, all that kind of stuff. Like, if Wonder Woman just started killing babies, it'd be like, oh, that's kind of a big jump for her character. It doesn't even matter if she's a woman, but, like, the fact that we, like, rooted for this character who we liked. Like, we knew that Walter White did some bad stuff. He was kind of a bad guy the whole time, so now you're just waiting for him to fall. But the fact that we liked this person for so many seasons, and we were like, heck yeah, keep burning those nice mustache-wearing guys in Essos and stuff. But the fact that, like, she just she just became evil. Like, you know, the prequels and stuff in Star Wars, we knew Anakin was going to become evil. Like, the classic thing of, like, even it's parodied in Deadpool, where, like, for example, a hero will break into a warehouse and be like, he'll kill all the underlings. When he gets to the really bad guy, he's like, you're going to live with your pain. I'm not going to kill you. You're not worth it. But, like, for Dany to be like, I'm going to kill everyone. Everyone's worth it. Because, like, there was a kind of, it's parodied in Deadpool, where, like, Deadpool's about to kill his arch villain in his first movie, and, like, Colossus, a good guy, is like, we must decide who we are going to be for our lives, how the world views us, and Deadpool just shoots him in the head, like, you were droning on. For her, I think it's awesome personally that, like, this thing, like, this happened in the show where it could be this divisive. Like, if it was set up better, I obviously would like it more. But the fact they just went for it, like,
yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was trying to say earlier, Targaryens. It's like we're like, yeah, Targaryens are the best, but, like, they practiced incest. They had dragons that just burned people utterly alive. Like, Targaryens are never good people.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
It was all about force and about power. And because I was thinking about that when I was watching it, about did the power just really go to her head? How much of it is maybe this sort of craziness that is inherent in them? How much is it, just being able to burn everything and thinking about her father saying, just burn them all, which was why Jaime killed him.
Yeah, I think with the double D. Sorry, we finished. Sorry.
Go ahead.
But also the double D's said basically they wrote the episode this way of her saying to Jon, which is almost which is what she followed through on her this episode. She said, "The people here love you, Jon. I will never have that. I only have fear." Which has been weird because she loved being worshipped in Marine and Yunkai and all that places in Esso. She loved being worshipped by people. She loved being worshipped and respected by the Unsullied and the Dothraki, who loved her. But the fact that she just now that oh, I tried love for 12 minutes while I've been here in Westeros. Let's go with fear.
And then he rejects her. And she's yeah, okay, fear it's going to be then.
Because, I love that scene watching again. Emilia Clarke is knocking out the park. I think you mentioned in the first few seasons she kind of made you a little cringy.
Think she was great.
But seeing the dark, super dark circles around her eyes and stuff, and just say fear it is. Because when she's talking to Grey Worm, for example, Grey Worm, I feel like Grey Worm could have talked her out of it and been even though Miss Andy said, "Hey, screw all these people and burn them all," which is a bad thing. Miss Andy's a bad person, not cool, Miss Andy. If Grey Worm could have in that scene, Dany is trying to reach out to Grey Worm and say, "Hey, tell me." Jorah was always there to say, "No, don't do this." Jorah was one of her most trusted people. So when Grey Worm tosses her Sandy's neck collar in the fire, which wasn't the best gift. Maybe they could have had a better conversation there. But then when she's trying to hold on to anything to keep her grounded and to tell her to stop. She's not going to go to Tyrion. She barely knows Tyrion. So when she tries to kiss Jon, give me something to hold on to here, man.
Yes.
Even your loyalty is enough. I need some love here because there's no love here anymore. Because she tried to kiss Jon with he's growing out his beard. His beard's getting pretty long there. But he denied her advances, at least sexually. But of course he's like, "You're my queen" and whatever. She's trying to hold on to anything, but she can't because Jon won't have it. She won't have him. Grey Worm won't talk her out of it. She doesn't trust Tyrion enough. She has no one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like you said, that Jon had so many people in his life who he could count on, and he's lost a lot of them. But even if he had lost all of them, he wouldn't have done this. And he realized that.
He was never entitled. He was a steward to Jeor Mormont, who taught him to be a good man. And Dany never had that. She at one point was held by some misogynistic Dothraki, and she's like, "Well, we're not gonna learn from each other's differences here because you threatened to rape me and your horses rape me. So how about y'all just burn you all to the ground?" She's never had to compromise. She never had to learn from her mistakes, really. Because can we break it down though? Go back to it real quick of Miss Sandy saying Dracarys.
Yes.
If your husband or best friend told you to do something, hey Becky, spread my ashes on this cliff or whatever, you would do it.
Right.
And for Miss Sandy to say hey, she should have said, "Remember Marine when you held people." These are a lot of long words, but sorry, Danny, these are my words. The last word's done. But the fact she said just Dracarys, I think Miss Sandy is kind of a morally. If Miss Sandy didn't say that, I do wonder how this would have gone. Miss Sandy's kind of a bad person. What do you think about that?
Well, I think what she was human in that moment, because it's very hard when you're about to be killed by this evil queen to take the high road, right? I mean, but that's why Dany is supposed to be able to think, and to be a good ruler, she has to have, again, it's wisdom. Wisdom seems to just be what a lot of these people are really missing. And she was just so angry, and even then she decided to hold off for a little while, but she just makes these bad decisions out of anger. But
just Dany and stuff.
Yes, but that last moment though, like I said, with her having enough time to hear the bells and to know,
think about it. It wasn't some spur of "Oh, I'm shooting." Well, I think it's almost like. Spoiler alert, but when Walter White decided to kill a friend / ally of him in last season, I just saw him seeing red, and that's why he did it.
Yes.
But the fact that Dany just took her sweet time strafing back and forth, and if this was How to Train Your Dragon, by the way, I bet Two-Flish / Drogon would have been puppy dog eyes, should we do this? But Drogon doesn't care. He lost his siblings. He was the last one. Did you hear the theory that when Drogon was away in season 5 and 4, he laid eggs and there's gonna be more dragons, and that's why Euron's looking up in the promo or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yes, I have heard that.
I've been pretty kiddish about it. And I'm glad HBO does promos well. But I watched the next promo, and I think I was curious about one question. I was wondering if like the Red Keep is because like if the basement of the Red Keep collapsed, like is the Red Keep just gone now? Because I think Dany was standing in front of her armies again. Like I don't know if that was just like on like the balcony of Littlefinger's old brothel or whatever structure is left in King's Landing. Because I still think like that's the capital, girl. Don't just destroy all of it.
Yes.
Like I'm pretty sure you got her. You know, like, and if you don't, like the Unsullied will. And I was worried about friendly fire. Like Jon's, like if Jon's in the center of the city, how does Jon know? How does Dany know where not to strafe and stuff? Because
I don't think she cares.
Even the Dothraki at one point were like mowing down civilians in the streets, and like I'm like, man, I would be getting out of this city, Dothraki. I think your flying dragon priestess, your god / queen, has it covered here, boys. How about you guys get out of here?
Yeah, save yourselves.
But I think I can talk logistics of like, well, why didn't any scorpions kill Dany? But apparently she cranked up Drogon to 11, so I don't think having anything really to say about like logistics or anything like that, because the shows haven't really been about that, like we said. But I do think it's pretty lame how like there were like still like thousands of her armies left in front of the Red Keep. Like I feel like there should be hundreds left.
Where did all of those Dothraki come from?
And we had that whole thing last week where it's like at the end of the long night, there were like 5 people in the courtyard once all the zombies Phantom Menace.
Yes.
But so it's weird for like, oh, in the next episode, in episode 4, they're like, oh, we only have half of the Dothraki. Winks to the camera, and it's like, are you sure, guys? I don't think the Dothraki know how to count. Besides how many horses they've done terrible things to, you know.
Well, so do you think that? Oh shoot, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh no. But
oh, that's terrible.
I think I've talked
really
about.
Sad.
We're at the hour and a half mark, and luckily I don't have to edit this much because we were able to stay on task. Much good job, by the way. But yeah, I mean, this last episode, like last episode, I have the most recent episode, I have no idea what's gonna happen.
I don't either. I mean, I kind of know what they've set us up for. Obviously, Jon has come to a realization. And Arya has come to a realization, and Davos is still alive somehow or
luckily,
another.
Somehow, that poor guy.
You know, yeah.
But like seeing Grey Worm waste fools in that moment where like the Lannisters were surrendering, but then like that sucked because like it's like this that's how wars go sometimes. When you take out a leader or something, that the Lannisters are just paid people. They're just soldiers. They don't want to fight unless they don't have to, but. I do think it's kind of strange because like maybe if Jon had Rhaegal still, there'd be like a cool because like as long as Dany still has Drogon, like for example if Arya stabs Dany in the back wearing Jon's face mask, what like Drogon's just gonna burn everything because he just saw his mother die. So I think there needs to find a way where Arya kills Dany and then Tyrion has a crossbow and shoots Drogon in the neck.
It's true that Drogon. That Daenerys is his mother or her mother, but also Jon is a Targaryen. So
yeah, but so Jon... I would theorize like, oh, because Jon still has Rhaegal, they're going to be a cool dragon fight, like, and it's going to be the perfect symmetry of 2 dragons fighting, like the Blood and Fire, like Targaryen rebellions, all that kind of stuff. But it still is funny because like no matter what happens, like Dany still is essentially Superman because she still has Drogon.
Yes,
so
for now, they can make a new capital at Storm's End, though.
Yeah, but then that's a kick Gendry out.
Right, or at Highgarden.
Sorry, Gendry made you lord, but I've just burned my castle, so sorry, pal.
I don't know.
I've been here for like 6 seconds, Dany. Seriously? I've been a bastard all my life. You made me king, and you kicked me out. She's like, I had it planned all along. I made you king just for this, or made you a lord.
So I don't know. So other than that, just realizing that Arya and Jon have both separately come to the same realization that Dany, this is not going to work out.
Is there going to be like a week time jump? Are we ever going to see Sansa again? Is there going to be like, meanwhile, in Winterfell, Bran just like watching, this is how it's made. You have your most recent wheelchair. Or...
Bran is just living in the past.
Because I feel like Bran should do something. Be like, Jon, here's how you kill Drogon, because I know everything. Blah, 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 blah. But,
I know. Or said Samwell stole all those books from the Citadel, a considerable
I don't know. Because it's weird, because like, I don't know how it's going to go. But also, I loved, dragons look so good in the show. Look so good. So good.
Yes.
In the daylight, in the darkness, looks so good. But I think I'm done talking because I could be like, I wonder if Dany's gonna kill Arya, then Jon's gonna mercy kill her, and then ride a dragon, and
who knows? I'm so wrong every thing I try to figure out. So just forget it. And that whole horse thing was weird at the end, but
I thought a spirit animal wasn't. Where's a wolf? you know. But apparently it's a white horse.
Yes, Nymeria's up north somewhere.
HOOO Boy. I
know.
remember like don't thread about not being able to predict anything because like I think that first episode I'm like, this is how Danny is going to realize democracy is the right way to go, but I don't think it's going to happen now. So
well, Arya is probably all for democracy.
I think she's all for stabbing two swords through Danny's back.
Eyes, right, two swords through her eyes, but then she'll be done.
But so there was what besides Danny kind of just coming out of nowhere. I think there were pretty good character moments and stuff. So I think this was great. It was a great episode overall. I mean, of course, it seems rushed overall, but well, what are you gonna do? I mean, they have $1 million budget for every episode of this show, so I wonder why. But I mean, the Double D's are trapped. I mean, it'd be cool if like, have you ever heard of the Fire Festival and all like the documentaries?
Yes.
I do wonder if like in a year from now, there's gonna be like an insider of like Miguel Sapochnik's gonna be like, yeah, I wanted to make the long night just only half an hour, but then Double D's like to like do like a crowd control / like explanation of this all. But
yes.
I think even though the fans aren't happy generally, I think it makes sense if you really think about it. Like if you just watch this out of context, my dad could be like, oh, that girl's crazy. I'm like, yeah, and there's reasoning, but that's it for me.
Okay.
Anything else to say?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Sweet.
And I am excited about the documentary they are going to show though the week after the final episode in 2 weeks. Yes.
What is it? What is it?
It was advertised after the show last night. A big HBO final season documentary.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ooh, that could be a really awkward watch for if it's terrible.
Yes. Oh, well,
by the way, my sister had a crazy theory that because yesterday was Mother's Day, that like there are going to be baby dragons that help in the battle because Drogon's a mother and it's Mother's Day. And it's like there's some pictures of like it's some pictures of like Jaime and Cersei like dying in rubble. It's like Happy Mother's Day, everybody. But I think
with all the crazy theories that have been out there, it's not surprising that a lot of people aren't happy because the theories have been way crazier even than what has actually happened. So, I think some people are just not pleased.
It is nice that they have like all the final theories, like, oh, this is what I've theorized for the last 10 years on the show. What's like, nope, that's not going to happen.
Sorry,
so,
you're wrong.
Speaking of ending, I think we're ready for this to wrap up. I'm Drew.
I'm Becky.
Have a great day. I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.